What's up? Welcome to Updates with Mr. Warford. This is for my world history people. We're starting a new unit called the French Revolution. So we talked a little bit about France during our absolutism unit. We're going to talk specifically about a time frame between 1789 and around 1799. This was a time of political upheaval in France. The government as it existed was destroyed, redesigned, and things like absolute monarchy and what was left of the feudal system get completely uprooted. And although it failed to achieve all its goals, the French Revolution played a critical role in the shaping of modern nations and showing the world the power of the will of the people, or the majority within a country. So why did it happen? So we can't really talk about the French Revolution without talking about the estates or social classes that existed in France for many years leading up to the revolution. And here's what they were. There were three. The first one, the first estate, was the church or clergy. They were very wealthy, very influential, but a very small group in number. Second, the nobility. They held jobs in the military, held jobs in the government like the court system, and had higher up positions within the church. They did not pay taxes. The first estate didn't pay taxes either. Again, a smaller group of people. The third estate was everybody else, okay? People ranging all the way from the poorest farmers of France to the middle class known as the bourgeoisie, which could include lawyers, doctors, businessmen, so it was everybody else. In 1789, about 97 to 98% of the population of France belonged to what was known as the Third Estate. So we see right off the bat, our first problem or reason that the revolution happened was society was divided. The Third Estate resented the privileges of the other classes, so they didn't have to pay taxes. They didn't have to work as hard. They had easier jobs that paid more. And some nobles had the right to hunt, and some peasants couldn't even hunt on the land that they farmed. They weren't allowed to hunt even to protect their crops. And then we start to see ideas of the Enlightenment. Remember from last unit? Ideas of the Enlightenment are causing the Third Estate to question this regime or question why these things are happening. The second reason, we run into financial troubles in France. So Louis XIV, remember him from the absolutism unit? When he died, he left France very much in debt, okay? The government is spending more money than it takes in through taxes or trading with other countries. Louis XIV, he had that lavish lifestyle of Versailles. He was helping the 13 colonies during the American Revolution, helping fund parts of that. He was also involved in what was called the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War, and other conflicts within Europe. So there were a lot of things were happening where he was spending a lot of money, and France was not bringing in a lot of money. So to solve the crisis, the government had to increase taxes on people. But here's the thing, if only one of your three estates is paying taxes, they're probably going to get mad eventually, right? The third reason, it just so happens, as luck would have it, that in the late 1780s there was a very bad harvest season. So there's not a lot of food to go around, so the price of that food goes up. People were very hungry. Peasants were even rioting and demanding bread. And they attacked homes of nobles. They went into their fancy homes and tried to break in and steal their food. The fourth reason, failure of reform. Okay, the heirs of Louis XIV. So when he dies, the people that took over after him really didn't do an incredible job. Louis XV continued to live that lavish lifestyle that was set up in Versailles, ran up the debt even more. Louis XVI was well-meaning, like he saw the writing on the wall that these things were happening, but he was very weak and indecisive. And his wife, the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, was not trusted by the French Third Estate because she was originally from Austria, born in Austria, and Austria was an enemy of France at this time, so there were rumors that she was sympathetic to Austria. Whether that's true or not, I don't really know. So Louis XVI calls what's called the Estate General. Okay, the Estate General is just a law-making body made up of the three classes in Versailles. But here's the thing. It's not as official as what you would think of like Parliament was in England. And because of absolute monarchy, the thing hadn't met for 175 years. So it's outdated, and it doesn't really have a lot of teeth, doesn't really have a lot of power. But they meet anyway, because people within France want fairer taxes, freedom of the press. They want the Estate General to continue to meet more frequently and not wait 100 years to do it. There starts to become a stalemate or a breaking point or a stop in negotiations, because traditionally each estate would get one vote on an issue, and the clergy and nobility who had the same things in mind could easily outnumber the third estate and win a vote 2-1. The third estate this go round, after 175 years, is like, we're tired of this, and they're not satisfied with how the negotiations are going. So we have a thing called the tennis court oath. So the third estate actually bucks the system, goes against the king, and says, we are the true representatives of the French people. They create a thing called the National Assembly. So they're trying to essentially create their own system of government outside of the monarchy, which is, essentially treason. So as they're meeting together, a few days later, they try to meet in a hall in Versailles, and the government locked it and guarded it and said, we're not doing this anymore. So they moved to a nearby indoor tennis court, and here it is. And here's a painting of them discussing it. And they moved to an indoor tennis court and take an oath called the tennis court oath. They said, we'll never separate, and we'll meet wherever the circumstances might require until we have established a sound and just constitution. So obviously this is going to cause some conflict. And it all kind of comes to a head on July 14th, 1789, at an event called the Storming of the Bastille. So people had heard rumors that the government was going to send royal soldiers to occupy Paris, France. So the Third Estate, very upset about this, because they don't want, military rule in their capital. 800 people gather outside a prison called the Bastille. And the unrest led to the crowd being fired upon by the people guarding the prison. Creates a riot. The crowd breaks down the defenses in front of the Bastille, goes in, kills the commander, kills 5 other guards, and releases the prisoners. So the Bastille was this symbol to the people of France that represented the monarchy. Okay, the Bastille had existed since the 1300s. It was this giant fortress, essentially, that represented the abuses of the monarchy. And it's very symbolic because in 1789, they break in and they begin to tear it down, like literally tear it down. And since 1880, the French have celebrated Bastille Day annually as like their Independence Day, similar to like our July 4th. So 1789 is a very important date to the French Revolution. So next up, now that we know what led to it and what tipped it off, so what actually happened after the storming of the Bastille? We're going to talk about that. What were the outcomes of the French Revolution? And then why is it significant to world history? Check Google Classroom, see if you got any new assignments. Have a great day.